Welcome, welcome, welcome to Marigold Live, and we're very excited to be hosting the Tech Forward Cultivation with the Christina Lake Cannabis team. I'm Bridget Hoffer, and we're excited, a partner, founder at Marigold, and we're excited to talk today about cultivation, technology, and learn from our amazing panelists that we've got gathered today to talk about Christina Lake. We've got Boychuk, Chairman and Director, Rob Jones, President, and Nicco Dehaan, COO and Master Grower. So before we get started, I thought it would be just great if we could start with Merv and then Rob and Nicco. They're going to introduce themselves to all of us, and then we're going to jump into some questions. We're going to talk a little bit about Christina Lake, cultivation, technology and extraction, research and development, and expansion and future opportunities. It's going to be a great hour, or an hour and a half, and lots of time for questions and insight. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Merv, over to you.
Hi everyone. My name is Mervin Boychuk, and just a little background on me. I grew up in Saskatchewan as a farm kid. That was a while ago. I attended school in a town called Foam Lake, and then I went on to university in Saskatoon. During that time, I was working a summer job in the construction business, and when you know it, I ended up in Medicine Hat as a summer job, and actually I still live here. Ended up when I was done school, I bought into the business, and I became president at 26 years old, and we were in the business of building roads, highways, freeways, etc. And we grew that business from a very humble beginnings to, we're doing just shy of $200 million in sales when we sold in 2009 to a public company. So that's my background. It's all been in the private sector. And so I'm now working in a public company, which is different, but really it isn't. You still got to get the job done and make money. So that's my background.
Oh, thank you so much, and what a journey. Over to you, President Rob Jones.
Thanks, Bridget. Rob Jones, born and raised here in British Columbia. I went to the University of BC, and I was just telling the crew earlier on that I graduated 40 years ago with a commerce degree. Was in the transportation business for a couple of years, and then got into the agricultural commodity trading business, where I've been involved in trading agricultural commodities from wheat, oats, barley, corn, canola meal, canola oil, canola seed, to the animal byproducts, fish meal, fish oil, meat and bone meal, etc. Not only domestically, but overseas as well. And was retired here about a year and a half ago. And then I fortunately was introduced to the good folks up at Christina Lake, and visited there last June and fell in love with the operation and the people, and I'm thrilled to be part of the team at Christina Lake.
Wow, thank you. All that amazing agricultural and investing, and what a great asset for the team. And that's what happens. You fall in love with the cannabis industry, and you fall in love with Christina Lake. And Nicco, you've been there for a long time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Nicco Dehaan. I work in Christina Lake as a COO and also as one of the master growers. I was born and raised in the Grand Forks, Christina Lake area. I've been involved in the cannabis industry for the majority of my life. I've worked under all the different licensing regimes, and really focused on commercial outdoor production, which we'll talk about more today. And I'm happy to be one of the representatives for Christina Lake, and I thank you all for taking the time and joining us today.
Great, from the West Kootenays, yay! So that's fabulous. So we're going to start off with a little overview, because not everybody knows about Christina Lake. So we'll have a little overview of Christina Lake. So tell us about Christina Lake Cannabis, Merv.
Yeah, so I'll get started. Christina Lake Cannabis was founded approximately 3 years ago by 4 individuals with a combined experience of over 7 years growing outdoor cannabis. Christina Lake Cannabis is located in a beautiful part of BC, just south of Christina Lake, towards the US border. It's absolutely stunning out there in the Kootenays. The weather there is typically hot and dry in the summer, which is ideal for doing what we're doing. CLC acquired about 32 acres in, I think, about 2018. There was an existing building on it that was retrofitted to suit, and a new 12,000 square foot processing building was designed and constructed. Approximately 25 acres has been set aside for outdoor cultivation, all in pots, as this is an industrial site, which is a requirement for processing. The CLC has in its possession approximately 120 proprietary strains of cannabis suitable for outdoor growing, which is a very nice bank to own.
Yeah.
The processing facility was fitted with top shelf extraction capability, as that was part of our business plan. And we've also added high-end lab equipment to make different products from the crude. CLC is a low-cost producer with a cost structure that is about 20% of the cost of indoor growing. As you know, it's growing outside in the sun. You don't need lights, et cetera, et cetera. Plants typically go bigger, so there's a lot of benefit to growing outdoors. In 2020, CLC harvested what proved to be a bumper crop, significantly exceeding our initial projections, and we'll talk more about that in this webinar. CLC currently moving forward with the sales of its first crop from 2020. It's taken a few months to get our extraction underway, to perfect our distillation and our winterization, but it's come along very nicely. We now have some product on the shelf with COAs, and we can now sell something. CLC currently holds a standard cultivation and processing license, which allows us to grow and to process. And we are working on our amendment to these licenses to allow selling to get underway. CLC, for, I guess you probably know, but is a publicly traded company on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol CLC, and in US OTC QX Exchange under symbol CLCFF. So that's a brief history of Christina Lake, and we'll probably fill in some of the gaps as we trudge along this journey.
Thanks, Merv. Rob, did you have anything to add to that overview?
Well, I think Merv hit the nail on the head of describing exactly what we're doing up there, and 22,500 pots. Pardon the pun, but plants, pots, and plants.
Yeah, exactly. Nicco, your team has over a century of combined cultivation, growing experience in the Kootenays for the last 20 years. Tell us what makes growing in Christina Lake region so special, so wonderful, so effective.
Yeah, so Christina Lake is a special place. It's got pretty much ideal weather conditions for outdoor cultivation. It's got warm springs generally with endless sunny summer days, with generally beautiful falls, which is ideal for your outdoor harvest. Generally, it's about a 7-month outdoor cultivation window, so it's quite a lengthy window compared to lots of the other areas in the province and the country. The other reason is that it's always been one of the biggest economic factors in the area. So the community is quite receptive to the business, and they've been endlessly supportive, doing whatever they can to help us along our journey. So that's been huge in our success. There's also, having such a rich history, there's been tons of legacy genetics that have been started here as early as the 60s, and lots of those are the backbones to a lot of the strains that we work with today. And those people have done years and years and years of trials, growing them within this area. So it eliminates a lot of the risk with the strains, because that the ones that have made it, it's kind of survival of the fittest, right? They're a lot stronger and suited to what we're doing. So that's huge. Also, we're also the largest employer in Christina Lake, and that's something we're really proud of. And it also makes it's part of our success story, just to have that support and ability to have the community rally around what we're doing.
Wow, that's an incredible overview, starting with publicly traded, the equipment, the size of the package, what you've done in the past 2 years, and then being the largest employer. and the legacy background and your strains. I'm sure that people may have more questions about Christina Lake before we move before the end of the hour, but thanks very much for that great overview. Let's talk about your inaugural outdoor crop. You alluded a little bit to that. The harvest topped 32,500 kilograms of dried cannabis, 10,000 above target, with mature plants reaching 10 feet tall. Okay, we want to know more about that. So, Nicco, why don't you tell us what your secret is and what you've learned, and share with all of the growers and LPs on this call.
Totally. So 2020 was a special season. It was one of those years that it was just amazing. It was perfect. The spring was a little cool at the beginning, but you'd rather have a cool spring than a cool fall. So we ended up having a major heat wave here. The grow team basically lived on site for the summer, watching the crop, and knew it was an opportunity that everybody had looked forward for. We've been waiting for years to have this happen. So we knew we had to come out of the gate strong and pull this off. So everybody gave it 110% and really laid it on the line to make this happen and achieve it. So that foremost, it was the team was the secret.
Okay.
On top of that, it was genetics. Lots of the genetics that were brought in, the growers and the team knew how they'd behave. They knew what they would yield. They knew when they would be harvested, and timing is everything with outdoor cultivation. You gotta have your plan, the full year ahead, because you plant different strains for different harvest times at different yields for different products, so that you know that when it comes to harvest, you can effectively bring them in on the timeline and with the resources and equipment you have. So that's huge. Our drying capacity is another huge factor in our success. Lots of LPs really struggle with the drying of the product when it's coming off the field, because it comes off quick. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be able to have surplus drying, because you can't control Mother Nature. So you have to be able to control your drying as much as possible. Saying that, we had our drying equipment, we have the ability to harvest 6,000 kilos a day. And that's what we were doing on our big harvest days. That's 6,000 kilos of wet material, which equates to about 1,200 kilos of dry. Mm. Yeah. And then oddly enough, one of the biggest challenges of the 2020 crop was the fact that it just kept on putting on more and more mass. So it was much larger than we initially anticipated it being. And that was due largely to the fact that the plot of land that we have is absolutely ideal, and some of the genetics we were using yields from not as ideal of conditions, so they really packed on the weight once they got into the CLC site. So it was kind of comical that one of the biggest problems was also our biggest success, and that was the mass just kept coming and coming. It was funny. We talked to the different board members and give updates and whatnot, daily, and then just try to figure out what the target was, and it just kept on going up and up and up and up and up. And that was the largest challenge, was getting it all in, and we were fortunate that the team was able to do that.
Wow, that is super impressive. And when you think about that, you were waiting, the whole community's been waiting for a season like you had last year. That's incredible. So how did you combine, as you started last year, how did you combine traditional growing techniques with cutting edge technology?
Bridget, if I can just sorry, Nicco, if I can just jump in and tell a little bit of a story. And I know that, I saw a question pop up about COVID and how we were dealing with this in the whole pandemic. One of the technologies that we had was basically these drying rooms, and we had ordered drying racks from China, from Asia, and they were supposed to arrive in early July. And unfortunately, due to COVID, all of the container shipping vessels were delayed overseas. And the next thing you know, we had 2 shipments, one of 2 containers and one of 4 containers, or actually it was 1 and 5. The first shipment of 1 container arrived in late August, and the other 5 containers got held up in quarantine in Vancouver. So you want to talk about a small area and neighborhood. Christina Lake is situated about 500 meters from the US-Canadian border. Mm. And I drove down and met a gentleman at the Canada Customs, and I said, Eric, we have a problem and we'd like your guidance and help. This product had been stuck in quarantine for 4 weeks. This was on Tuesday. On Friday, it got released. So I would suggest, he would say no, but I would suggest there was a phone call made to say, guys, we need to help these guys out because we were in the middle of laying people off if we didn't get these racks in. They arrived the following Monday. Nicco had a great big smile on his face looking at all the drying racks out there. And we were able to get the crop off and put through the drying room. So anyways, just a small story to add about the community up there and how everybody kind of jumps in when it's required.
That is an awesome story. You know, when you think about everything you'd have to do to get those racks over in 5 days, that's incredible. Congratulations, you guys, and congratulations to the community. Like that's a great story. So let's just jump back to technology. And Nicco, why don't you talk a little bit about your traditional growing techniques and with your cutting edge technology?
Sure. So it starts from the very beginning. So the breeding is the first thing. So one thing that we did is we feminized a lot of our seed. So basically what that is you force a plant to hermaphrodite, and then you can breed with it so that all your seed or the majority of your seed is female. We had a ratio of 6 of 15,000 that showed hermaphroditic qualities. So it was a very, very good ratio. So what that allows you to do is replicate plants very quickly. So in our case, we created 30,000 plants last year. And so to do that, it's a really effective way of creating those plants on a timely manner at a low cost. So that was a trick right off the hop that worked very, very well for us. I know feminizing is a controversial thing as far as for some growers have had great success and some haven't. We were fortunate that we had really great success with it. Then we use what's called CMH lighting. It's a newer style of lighting. Some people are using it now, and basically what it does is it creates a more of a full spectrum, lots of UV, and it's actually closer to the natural sunlight than most of the other artificial lights. So we use that, and that reduces the veg time on the plants and actually creates a stronger structural plant as well, and one that is more resistant to mildew and pests, because the pests don't like the UV and nor does the mildew. So that's kind of how we utilize that. Then once we get into the field, we use a fully automated irrigation system, and we break out all our acres all of our property into acres, which then are broken into 4 different distinct zones within per acre that are all exactly the same amount of pots, same pot size, same quantity of soils, same amount of plants. So that replication, it allows us to do everything basically automated. So we use what's called dosatrons, and we mix brine tanks that inject our fertilizer into our system and then deliver it to these micro zones in our acreage, and then we can alter them depending on what their needs are to those little zones. And you can deliver more water, less water, whatever's required, and kind of tailor it to what the strain needs. From there, when we're harvesting, our drying is really something that's been great for us. Basically it uses a closed room, closed loop systems that uses dehumidification. So not like blowing to air and drying your wheat and losing all your terpenes. It's concealed all in a room. So you're drying within the room and recirculating the air and using dehumidification to pull the moisture out. So you get a higher quality product in the end. And like I said, we can do about 6,000 kilos a day with what we have for dehumidification power. Probably the biggest thing, and I'll probably speak to this a little more later on, but is having testing on site. It was an absolute game changer for us, and a very interesting thing that what our growers thought was the optimum time to harvest cannabis, myself included, actually wasn't. And what we learned is that for what we were doing with extraction, the actual peak time was 1 to 2 weeks earlier than what our eye had always been trained to let us indicate was ripe. And so that was something that was a huge finding for us, because basically it cuts down your total cycle time for the outdoor harvest, and your product is actually better. So that was an absolute huge win for us with the testing.
Wow, those are so just, you know, when you think about, so there is the feminizing, the CMH lighting, the automated irrigation, and then we looked at the dehumidification and dehumidifier, and then having testing on site. That, I just wanted to repeat it because you went through it, and I know that people are probably taking notes and really trying to catch everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
Rob, did
One
you
other
have anything? Sorry.
one other thing with it is too, is that our style for this acreage is very high output. So what we did is we actually grew the whole acreage in pots, and basically the decision that we did that for is that we can control everything. There's no heavy metals. There's everything as a COA. It's very, very controlled. We can actually grow strains that don't typically finish if you're growing them directly in the dirt, because the little bit of root boundness that you can create within the pot structure, we can actually cause the plant to trigger into flower earlier so that it finishes on time within the climate that we were working with. So it really opened up the door with working with some genetics that typically wouldn't work in this area.
Wow. Merv, Rob, anything to add on that? Anything in terms of the growing?
This guy's the guru. We don't have anything to add.
So why did you choose to focus on outdoor cultivation?
I mean, for us, it's the business that makes sense for the area. It's our largest advantage. If you're going to do outdoor anywhere in Canada, it's definitely one of the strongest locations. So that's the logical reason. Also, the team is generally focused in that. Like, lots of our growers got 25 plus years of experience doing this. So again, it's a logical fit. It was low risk for that reason. The capital costs for infrastructure are much less per square foot. And also your yields can be massive, which we experienced last year. We had individual plants that were coming out at over 4 kilos out of a 25-gallon pot. So there were some very, very productive plants that had come out, and we look forward to working with those particular genetics further. And then also the quality, like sometimes outdoor has a bad name for certain products, but in our experience, when you're making it down into your oils and distillates, and especially your winterized oil with terpenes, you can get some amazing terpene profiles off growing under natural sun. And that's something that we've really dove into and are really proud of the product that's coming off of it this year. Also, there's some of the more minor cannabinoids that really express themselves in a higher range in the outdoor environment. So with time, as the Canadian market evolves, there's going to be major value in those rarer cannabinoids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned that you don't use pesticides a couple of minutes ago. How do you ensure quality pest-free plants?
Yeah, so on the indoor, the CMH lighting plays a very large role in that. It is very effective at keeping your mildews down. And then also for the pests, we use beneficial insects. The 2020 crop was never sprayed by anything. That's including Health Canada approved pesticides and fungicides. It never was sprayed, not one plant with any product. And then on the outdoor, we actually worked with some biologists that were on site for the season, and they came in and did sampling once a month on natural predators and pests. And then we actually tried to encourage, we have a really good native ladybug population here. So we encourage those bugs as much as we can. And we made the decision not to introduce any non-native bugs, just in the essence that they would possibly affect the naturals. We also used a bug called lacewings, and so we would basically distribute the larvae throughout the fields to encourage the lacewing population, which ended up working effectively. And then this year we're considering doing some interesting stuff of planting some companion plants, basically not cannabis, out in the cannabis crop, to encourage some more of those natural predators into the area.
Hey,
Bridget, it was amazing last year when you would walk along in the field and look at individual plants very closely and carefully, the amount of ladybugs that were on some of the plants, and the different colored ladybugs, red ones as you would imagine, but there were also green ones as well. So it was very unique to look at the different the different types of quote so-called pests, but they were the good pests.
The good pests that look great and sound
Exactly.
great. Ladybugs and lacewings. I think that sounds great.
The other thing I just wanted to mention, I see in the chat room, there was just a blurb about pesticides. We even went so far as to, we test the soil. So the soil was tested for heavy metals and pesticides as well, and we were negative on throughout the whole entire operation. And then once the product is harvested, we go for further testing, and then each stage is tested for pesticides and heavy metals. And we've had zero test positive throughout the whole entire session.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, that's another thing on the Christina Lake location being so special is that I know other LPs that I'm friends with in the Okanagan and whatnot, sometimes they struggle with drift from different agricultural crops, and we're
Right.
fortunate to be kind of standalone in our area and not have to deal with that problem.
And one more thing that comes to mind with this outdoor selection of outdoor growing is that the relative humidity is quite low in that area, and that really helps you with your battle with mold and mildew and those type of things, which are not pests, but they're microbials. So that's another consideration for outdoor grow. It's a lot easier to perhaps manage outside than inside.
Good. So just before we wrap up on some of the growing, what are the strains you're going to grow this year? What strains are you growing?
Yeah, so a lot of them are just codes, so they're nonsense to the average person. But we're gonna do a bunch of the ones that proved out last year, and that we've done consistently for many years throughout the valley. They're going to be the majority of the crop. Saying that, we've also, when we got our license, you're allowed to do basically a strain declaration on licensing day. So we knew that day was coming for a long time. So we started gathering and breeding genetics to bring in legally when we got licensed. And so that bank actually consists of over 500,000 seeds that were purposely bred for this project, as well as over 100 clone strains specifically for outdoor cultivation. So what we did is we brought a bunch of those into play last year and proved them out as seed plants, and then we took clones off them, mothered them for the season, and those will be the new genetics going forward this year. Many of them were testing up to about 26% in THC.
Wow.
And yields were phenomenal, and actually we had harvests as early as the end of July on some of the strains, really stretching our harvest window out. We're very excited to bring those new genetics in because they're absolute game changers when you get into those kind of potencies, and we look forward to the next years really developing out and pushing in new strains that we have in our seed bank as well.
Wow. So we've covered a little bit about growing. Now we're going to move into technology and extraction. And Rob, have you used drones, and what are their advantages?
My first day on site, even just to visit, was back in early June, and I'd gone for a tour with Nicco and Joel Damaris, who's our CEO, and we walked into the security room, and Tyler Bidnick was in there, and he said, "Joel," he says, "I need to buy a drone." And he said, "What do you need a drone for?" So he showed him the technology, and Joel looked at him. He said, "How much was it?" And it was reasonable. And Joel said, "Yeah, we need one of those." So a month later, this drone arrives on site, and it took Tyler, he's very technologically advanced, so it probably took him about a half an hour, but maybe it was a couple of days. But he got this machine tuned in, so we sent it up daily, and it basically takes a picture every second and goes up to a certain height and goes around the full 22,500 plants and takes individual pictures of every plant. And from there, we can tell if a plant is in stress or it needs additional water or additional fertilizer. So basically from the drone, we can sit there and monitor the crop as it grows. So as Nicco mentioned a while ago, we've got everything spaced out in different quadrants. And if certain quadrants have got a water issue, an irrigation issue, a plugged pipe, that's detected very early, and we can send out the workers early in the morning saying, "Please check this one out, please check that one out." So I think by making this small investment, it certainly helped us as the growing season evolved.
It's an incredible surveillance opportunity, and given your automated irrigation system and how it's all working together, that's incredible. Moving to on-site extraction, that's been a big game changer for you. Tell us about the technology that you're using, Merv.
Yes, I'll just start at the beginning. CLC looked at different options in the early going as to what would be the appropriate type of extraction that we could use, and some of those options were ethanol, hydrocarbon, and of course CO2. CLC determined that the Vitalis R200S was the best choice for our extraction needs, and it was a CO2 extractor that consisted of 200-liter vessels, and so with that, you can do terpene extractions initially, and then, extract your crude. So it proved out to be the right choice, is how we're looking at it now. But we also collaborated with Vitalis, who supplied that unit to us, in securing and commissioning what's called a co-solvent component that dramatically increased the efficiency and output of this R200. We found that CO2 extraction is really good, but it's really relatively quite slow, and but it does have benefits, and one of the benefits is you could become EU GMP certified if you so choose to. But due to the size of our crop, and we need to get through the extraction, we needed to speed it up, and this co-solvent injection unit, it did just that. And some of the other benefits from this injection system, and it was just an add-on. It was really easy to install and commission. But some of the major benefits is a reduction in the fats and lipids and waxes in the crude, which reduces or diminishes your requirement to remove them, which is becomes a filtration problem. Another benefit is the crude oil becomes partially winterized, meaning that the ethanol is already mixed with the crude, so you can go right into the winterization process. Another benefit is a higher efficiency in extraction. We're up 90% or possibly even better at times of cannabinoid extraction, which is great. We could never get that with just a monosolvent of CO2. We're always lower. And the real benefit here is that we more than doubled our output. So
wow.
that allows us to get through our crop and have some spare time to perhaps do some other things. Our extraction system is capable of processing somewhere around 270 kilograms of mass per 24 hours, or if you want to look on a per hour basis, about 11.25 kgs per hour. So that's pretty good. And yes,
that's amazing. It sounds like the Vitalis R2S has been a really good choice for Christina Lake.
Yeah, it's R200S. It is, and the other reason we went with Vitalis is their proximity and the support. We could have purchased some different machines in the U.S. and we had to weigh in on that with COVID and the inability to send techs over, and just the delays. It just made sense, and we've found that the support is really first class. But in addition to the extractor, we matched our extraction capability up with lab equipment in the winterization room. We have an Equidis solvent recovery that's capable of 20 to 25 liters per hour. When we run the two vessels in tandem, we run two cryo freezers that take you down to -80, and we added a really good filtration system from Infinity. And then on to the distillation, we are using a Delta roll film short path distillation unit, and it's capable of 4 to 5 liters per hour. Again, that's somewhat dependent on how many passes you make. So we're finding that the milling, sifting, winterization, distillation, they all match up to our production capability, which was always a concern. You wanted to find your bottlenecks, and we did. So so that in a nutshell is our extraction part of our business, and it kind of gives you an overview of what our capabilities are. So we can easily handle our crop with this unit easily and more. So we're excited.
Great. Sounds super efficient, effective, and productive.
It was
Rob?
interesting. It was interesting, Bridget. February 1st was when the co-solvent unit came in from Vitalis in Kelowna. And like Merv said, that was a game changer where we were
Yeah.
basically processing 90 kilos a day. We went to 240. So if you did the
Wow.
simple math, there wasn't enough days in the year and we were running into issues. So starting in February 1st, we basically cranked production up, substantially. And I see there was just a question in the chat room of where we're at with our processing. We've done about 45% of our crop has now been processed into a form of oil,
Mhm.
and we're certainly confident that that's going to be all processed before the new crop comes in. So and also, like Merv said, having the Vitalis guys in close proximity in Kelowna has been great. And they're certainly eager. They've got some new ideas, and with us being basically 3 hours down the road, they can bring any of their new ideas on site and do a little bit or some R&D projects with us. And we're more than happy to accommodate and basically use their new technology in our facility.
Wow. So much community support around you guys, and supplier support and partners. It's amazing. Sorry,
Yeah.
Merv, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, we got the very first unit they built and commissioned, so we're pretty pleased about that. We knew something was in the air. We've been bugging them all summer about it, so they finally, so we were so persistent that they worked with us, and that was great. So we got serial number 1.
Awesome. Awesome. Rob, we were talking a little bit about major benefits of vertical integration. How does that work in terms of in regards to on-site extraction, you guys?
Well, I guess I'll go back to one of the questions here we had 10 minutes or so ago. Is it why outdoor cultivation? Well, it's cost structure. When you grow outdoor, your cost per gram is a lot lower than either growing completely indoor or in greenhouses. So because we have a low cost product going in and we don't have to transport it anywhere, we have our own extraction facility on site. There's no transportation cost for raw material. We can process it into basically finished goods going to the wholesale market. So everything is right there on site. And I think that's our largest advantage is the low cost and then having our own facility right basically in our backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've got all the low cost, but how else do consumers benefit from your tech forward cultivation processes? How does this impact the consumer?
Well, I think the consumer is going to be impacted when we come to market with a lower cost distillate than the other, I guess, competitors. You get the large guys that are growing indoors, they've got a large overhead to cover. And I think that eventually when our product hits the market, we're going to have a very, very good quality product at a very reasonable price where consumers are going to benefit from the fact that we are the low cost producer and a low cost provider in the marketplace. And I think that you'll see retail prices reflect that.
Hey, I can't, well, we're all waiting for it to happen. But, low cost, good value, good quality, it's all there. Let's talk a little bit about research and development. I'm going to turn it over to you, Nicco. Beyond technology, what sets Christina Lake apart from other producers?
The team and the history. I mean, it's kind of interesting because this is a cannabis company that kind of happened differently. Most of the people involved were involved in cannabis already, so it was a matter of just getting a platform to work under, right? So I think that's part of it. The learning curve was relatively easier for us as compared to some companies, just because of the fact that many of the people involved are very experienced, from the extraction team to the cultivation team, all the way through all the processors and everything. So that's definitely one of its huge advantages for sure. Location as well, as talked about earlier. It's hard to replicate the location and the weather that comes with it. Those are two of the biggest factors. And then also genetics is another thing. lots of the early LPs that got in were really strangled by the genetics that they had available to them. It was very hard to compete with the gray market that was out there because they only had certain genetics available for them. So
yeah.
we were fortunate to kind of come in at a time where we were able to bring in a very large plethora of genetics, and we utilize that every way we can.
That's important, and it leads into my question about Christina Lake. Is one of the few growers that Health Canada has an R&D license. One in select few in the country. How does it elevate Christina Lake above the competition, Rob?
Well, I think it allows us to look at some of the strains that Nicco talked about.
Yeah.
It also allows us to go to the government for certain grants, whether we're looking at equipment. We've got a couple of research projects that we're looking at in some filtration, some nanofiltration projects. Both Nicco and I had discussions yesterday with the Vitalis people, and they've got a few new ideas that they're talking about. So it certainly allows us some flexibility to grow and expand using some new technology, and also to get some government money to help us through that process.
Can you talk about any of you're currently working on some research projects. Can you talk about any of them right now?
I don't know if the guys in Kelowna up at Vitalis would like us to tell all of their secrets. So unfortunately, Bridget, I can't.
Okay.
But I can add just a couple of little things here that.
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to be conducting some organic soil tests, which we'll be measuring inflows of water and outflows, et cetera. So we're doing a little test plot to improve, see if we can get an improvement in our soils that we use for water transferring, et cetera. And one of the other things we're doing is going to be setting up some web stations for data collection to better help us better understand what's happening with the microclimates in that area.
Wow. You guys are just working there's so many areas that you're just not leaving any stone unturned. I was hoping that you could tell us, Merv and Rob, a little bit about your partnership with TAT Lifestyle and Wellness. That's one thing you can talk about.
Yeah, we were approached by TAT to assist them in securing access to the Canadian marketplace for TAT's proprietary non-nicotine hemp-based smokable products. TAT has developed a proprietary technique for producing these hempettes for sale in the US, but was seeking our expertise in the Canadian regulations and how best to produce that product in Canada. So we formed a committee made up of members from each company and are presently in an advanced discussions with TAT surrounding Health Canada's approach to these products, as well as how Christina Lake Cannabis can produce and sell products under that license from TAT. We see this as a tremendous opportunity for both Christina Lake and TAT, and we're excited about the collaboration, and potentially we may even be able to put some cannabis product blended in with the hemp products, but that's obviously regulatory, and we have to go through the process in order to get that next step. But certainly it's a nice potential.
Yeah, and innovative, extremely innovative. So I'm just going to look over the list here. We did want to touch on expansion and future opportunities. Merv, are you looking to add any technologies to your operation?
We're always looking to add technologies. We're looking at improving our processing of the harvest, which is basically the shredding, the material. We're adding some improvements there to improve efficiencies. We're looking at we're more than looking. We're actually moving ahead with more of an automated tray washing systems. And one of the things that there's a few technologies that are in their infancy, and we're watching the development with great interest is harvest techniques. Maybe freeze drying is the next thing, and there's just maybe wet harvesting. It's in its infancy and it's not commercially available yet, but we will be there when it's ready. So we're closely watching it.
Okay. And what's happening, Rob? What's happening right now on site at Christina Lake? What are the upcoming plans?
Well, sorry, I've got some sound outside here.
Okay.
We're in the middle of cleaning up the last year's crop out of the pots. So as Nicco suggested, first thing, or when we jumped on the call, that we're probably halfway through cleaning up all of our pots. We're in the middle of cloning, and Nicco, I don't know where you're at as far as clones getting ready to go. So maybe you can take that part of it.
Sure. Yeah, we've got about 8,000 clones cut already for this season. The team's doing about 1,500 a day. Next week we'll be planting our feminized seed, as well as we're going to be bringing on probably about 20 more new strains beyond what we did last year for testing. So those will be from seed. Those will be like an F1 non-sexed. So we're excited about that, and yeah, things are plugging along really nicely.
It sounds like you're on a good track with the clones.
Some of the other things we're doing, Bridget, is that we've with our new production ramping up, we've got a lot of product that is finished goods now. We've got the product off to labs. We've got certificates of analysis, which is required by Health of Canada to take the product to the marketplace. So we have various products available to go to market. We have biomass, we have keef, we have crude raw oil, we have winterized oil, we have distillate in various degrees of THC, anywhere from 82% THC all the way up to 95% THC. We're in the process of sending samples out to at least half a dozen buyers. They will in turn take that and put it through their own labs, analyze it, and we're hoping to have some major sales within the next couple of weeks.
Wow. This has been a great overview. We've been talking for almost an hour about Christina Lake and everything going on. We'll post in the chat in a few minutes if anyone wants to talk more about opportunities and expansion, to reach out to Jamie Frawley, Investor Relations. But I think if you guys are comfortable, it's been a great conversation, and I'd love to open it up to the floor and start asking some questions, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure, absolutely.
So the first one comes from Michael Adamson. In your ops plan, have you considered off-grid energy generation, not grid connected, to both extend your growing season, offset existing energy costs, and underwrite expansion?
So I can speak a little bit to that. So one of the benefits of our structure right now is that our whole crop, we basically run our indoor operation, other than keeping our genetics alive, for the months of February, March, April, and May. And we pull our whole 20-acre site off of 40 lights for those months. So our energy cost for what we're doing right now is very, very low. Mm-hmm. It's always something that we strive to become more efficient at, but it is something that we pride ourselves in, is the low impact of the product that we're producing.
Okay, great answer. I hope Michael's happy with that. Tommy Lohner, I hope I've said that correct. Given the price advantage, Christina Lake can probably crush the market. What are your revenue projections over 3, 6, 12-month ramp up? Thanks, from Zurich, Switzerland, Tommy.
I think that question is better answered by our CFO and CEO, and okay, that be something that we could probably have ready, and we're already, that process is underway, so it'll be perfect. Published.
Okay, great. So we'll send that over to Jamie for the revenue follow-up for Tommy, so another question from Tommy is the Tate cooperation. They were mentioning an overview that you're discussing with HG importation. I think that, Tate CLC has not been produced at the CLC site, or Tate prepare all the base materials, and CLC is in charge of the distribution. Any timeline when you expect to be operational and selling? I think we've just answered a little bit of that, but Rob, did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think with the TAT situation is that the product is produced in the US right now, and I think that there are some regulatory issues with producing that product in Canada. So that's why we're still going through the legalities and the discussions with Health Canada regulators in how best we can proceed. So as far as a timeline goes on that specific, I guess, project, we're still several months away of figuring out exactly where we stand on that.
Okay, great answer. This is from Russell. To finished harvest as early as July, what time did you plant seeds?
May 14th.
Wow. Just so clear. And does Nicco see a significant difference between plants grown from seed versus clone?
Yeah, great question. So that's I can't speak too much about that because that's one of the R&D things we're working on right now heavily. Yeah, the vigor from like an F1 seed is unbelievable, and that's actually part of the reason why our yield was so significant is that we severely undershot on our yield from a feminized F1 cross that we did, and it absolutely blew it out of the water here. It was testing up to 26%, deadly consistent, and just an amazing product. So we do see those differences, and that's a big part of our genetic program is breeding those seedlings into clones and trying to carry that vigor through. There is a few tricks that we've learned ourselves over the years and are continuing to learn. And we hope that we can develop clone strains that have that seed vigor in the future. And we do have some, and we'd like to carry that through with all our genetics.
I'm sure. That's incredible. We have a question from Alan Cutler. He was an early investor in Christina Lake, and he hasn't invested in any other cannabis companies. And so he's pulling for your success. And how do you think you will best compete against other Canadian cannabis growers, e.g. Aurora, Kronos, etc.? Cost, price, quality, and do you expect to be able to compete in the US once regulatory hurdles are overcome? I know that you touched on that a little bit, but Rob, Merv, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think I'll talk specifically to the US. I think obviously that's several years away. Obviously, President Biden has to do some finagling and perhaps make it legal or not illegal across the whole entire 50 states. And when that happens, then we could see some opportunities arise where product can go back and forth across that border. I guess I look at potentially export markets like Australia. Maybe there's an opportunity there. I see we have a guest on from Mexico. Perhaps there's an opportunity there to send some of our oil products down there for further processing. So I see, potentially those types of markets evolving for us in the future as we get more products available to go onto the marketplace.
Okay, great.
I think, Bridget, with respect to the comment about competing with the Auroras and the canopies, well, they're different. They're indoor, and I think they're migrating. I think I'm correct in this saying this, migrating more towards high-end indoor grow, which will be, kind of a specialty product. And I think some of them are looking to maybe partner up or acquire outdoor grows because, it's just so much more price competitive than the indoor. So I think we're seeing consolidation starting to occur already.
Okay. Another question that we got was how much of the 2020 crop has been processed into product? I think you touched on that a little bit, Nicco.
Yeah, I think Rob mentioned it was about 45%.
Yeah, so I think we touched on that. I'm just going through the questions here. There's a follow-up question based on Nicco's R&D comments. Does Christina Lake have any IP for any of its growing or extraction processes or other IP?
I think that's something that we're constantly working on. It's kind of an interesting thing because lots of the things that are out there, some people are bringing it forward like it's their proprietary ideas, but they've been there for years. So I know we're conscious of that, and anything that we would say as our own truly would be our own, and reluctant to try take something that someone has already been used or invented, just hasn't had the opportunity to present.
Okay. Okay, we also have a nice comment here from Jeff McAllister from Merriwell. He's listening to your story and finding that you're 90%. He's an outdoor grower in Wheatley, Ontario, and they'd like to connect with you and share some of the prototype models they'll be testing on their vertical outdoor grow. So we'll follow up on that. We have a couple of questions that we received in advance for people who couldn't attend. What products do you currently have for sale? Merv, Rob?
Bridget, I mentioned this earlier that, obviously when we came out of harvest, we had all of our biomass tested and analyzed for full COAs. So we have biomass available. We have keef. We put in some sifting equipment here a couple months ago, and we're producing a keef product that can go into the making of hash and different products. Through our 3 labs, our extraction lab, our winterization lab, and our distillation lab, we have 3 different types of oils. We have crude raw oil, we have a winterized oil, and we also have the distillates, as I've mentioned. And then from that, when Nicco talked about terpenes, we can certainly add the terpenes back to the winterized, back to the distillate to make a full spectrum oil as well. So our quiver of products is slowly building. Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having some good sales here over the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And do you have any wholesale options?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Bridget, our company is basically wholesale to wholesale. So we're selling to other LPs, other licensed processors within the Canadian regulatory or Health of Canada banquet of companies.
Oh, good, good. And what is Christina Lake doing to operate sustainably?
I mean, from the gross perspective, our soil, for instance, we use our soil for up to 10 years plus. We don't dispose of it. It's a big problem with peat products that they get used once and then they're disposed of. We use it year after year after year and just amend our soil. That's a huge one for us. Interestingly enough, and this kind of reflects back to the energy question as well, as currently this morning we were talking about using our byproducts from the winterization and distillation process to heat our greenhouses. So we're working on that right now to go through the regulations to use that byproduct to actually heat the greenhouses for the spring months, which would be great if we can figure that out. And then as well as our biomass, like our biomass after it's denatured and not considered a cannabis product, we work with local farmers to put it back into the fields as a source of nitrogen and fiber for their soils.
Okay, great answer. And we have another question here from an anonymous attendee. Have you done any autoflower last year or plans to do any? And they'd like your opinion on that. I'll throw that over to Merv and Nicco.
Yeah, so we do play around with autoflowers. Generally, we don't do pure autoflowers. The yields are just a little bit different than what we're looking for, but we do some crossing into different autoflowers and use it as a way of breeding with high-end indoor genetics and reducing their flower time. So they are a tool for us. We do include them in some of our breeding programs.
Okay, and there's another question here from Alexi. Can you provide a breakdown of OPEX, and explain the key risk areas and sensitivities on these costs?
Our OPEX expenses are generally pretty static. I mean, there's not a lot of up and down there. I mean, you only use so much fertilizer and you use so many consumables, and we pretty much have those determined. So our OPEX is only going to change as you increase your crop size. So yeah,
exactly. And change your operation.
I think that's fair, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's all the questions we have right now. I don't think we've got, I think we've got everyone. Oh, there's another one just come up here. Are you planning for any growth that extends beyond the land that you own?
Well, we have the capability to do that. It's going to be based on demand, and you know, right now we're getting our feet under us with our 22,500 plants we did last year, which will increase this year probably to 25 or 27,000 in the same footprint. But we have 99 acres really close by that we can develop into growing. It's a ALR, so it's agricultural land. We can't process it. We can grow there and then transport to a processing facility. It's like less than half a kilometer away. So we have the capability. We have cleared the land, and we're just getting it prepared. It's not likely before 2022 at the earliest, probably 23, but we'll see. I mean, the demand will dictate.
Okay. Demand will dictate it. And this is the last question from Alexi. Can you touch on demand forecasts in Canada and other markets Christina Lake are looking into?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, right now, being a Canadian processor, we're kind of stuck in the Canadian market. Having said that, there are some export markets that we are going to look at now that we've got product that is finished and we've got certificates of analysis to go to. So I mentioned earlier, Australia, Jamaica is another possibility, perhaps Israel, Malta, or other countries that in the past have taken Canadian products in. So those are other areas that we're looking to.
Christina Lake going global. I love that. Oh, so there's another comment from Alan Cutler. Mervin's comment with regard to mergers and takeovers. Is Christina Lake open to either a merger or a takeover? I think that's an investor relations question. Sorry to put you on the spot, but
it is. But I can say that, you know what, we look at any option that makes sense. If it makes you better, just to do it for the sake of doing it, no. But if the marriage would be beneficial for both, we would look at it, you know, especially if somebody's doing something that we're not, and we're doing something that they're not.
Exactly. Okay. So there's 3 more questions that have come up now. Question to Nicco. Nicco, I know your company is looking at extract products, but are you planning on selling dried flower in the future? Are there other challenges? Are there other challenges that approach would present?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're always open to it, and we are exploring it. I think what we'll probably do is we'll probably phase it slowly. So I think that this year we'll probably do a bunch of flower that's going to be going towards pre-rolls. We see a huge opportunity there, and we've identified that the consumers are looking for a low impact, sun grown natural product. And so I think we can really capitalize on that. For selling true flower, I don't imagine we'll do too much, if any, this year. The following year I could see it. I think this year it'll be a pre-roll product and really get our name out there with that, because I think it's a market that we can do very well in.
Okay, so considering dried. 2 more questions. BC bud is world renowned. Why is cannabis grown in the Kootenay so revered? Why is it? I guess I'll ask all 3 of you on that one.
I think it's just the rich culture, right? And also, I think it all started with outdoor, and I think the difference originally is that the outdoor cannabis generally from this area was just a bit better than most because of the environment. And so, you know, some of the stuff that was coming from different areas didn't quite have as long of a season or as dry of a season. So it was harder, it was more challenging for the growers. And so I think early on it got its name cut from, you know, high quality outdoor that was just a bit ahead of the rest of the country, and especially into the export markets at that time. And then it continued on through the indoor as well.
Okay, so this is the final question.
Bridget,
oh, sorry, go on.
We're still at such an infant stage. But to add to what Nicco said, if you want to take it to the wine growing regions of the area, whether it's Burgundy, whether it's Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley, there's something involved in the terroir or the water, and the Kootenay terroir and the Kootenay water just happens to grow good cannabis.
Awesome. Awesome. I love the whole image of Christina Lake. So last 2 questions, we've still got some time. This is an expansion question. I love this. This is for you, Rob. How about starting a twin facility across the border in the US if you're only 500 meters away? Like, what's the opportunity there? I guess it goes back to legislation, but over to you.
Well, yeah, legislation. I don't know if I want to go to jail in the US, but yeah, no, we would be more than delighted to have something just across the border that we could work together without a doubt. But it all comes down to legalities.
Exactly. One more question, Nicco. You mentioned the team is taking about 1,500 cuttings a day at the moment. Are mother plants rotated every year?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they definitely are. And then also sometimes we'll bring them back to, we haven't done it on this site yet because we've only been licensed for just over a year, but we'll bring them back to tissue culture to clean them up. And then also we'll bring them back to seed and then restart from seed and bring them up fresh as well.
Okay. Well, I think that's all our questions. It's been an awesome hour talking about Christina Lake with Merv and Nicco and Rob. Thank you so much to all of you and to Christina Lake for joining us today. If you'd like to connect with the Christina Lake team, you can reach out to Jamie Frawley at investors@clcannabis.com. It looks like CLC Cannabis, but stay tuned for more Marigold live events. And don't forget to sign up for our Women Wellness and Cannabis Conference on May 26th and 27th. So thank you very much. And any last words from Merv, Rob, Nicco?
We've had challenges in year one, and we've done a lot of things good and really well, and we've done there's a few things that could stand improvement, and we were addressing all those things. And I think we're in a much better position this year because now we have all our build out complete, our equipment in place. We can now do a timely harvest in a more efficient manner, doing it uniformly rather than cramming. So we're looking forward this year. We think it's going to be a much better scenario. So we're excited about it. Plus, we're going to broaden out our product range too. We're excited about that too.
We're excited for you. Rob, anything from you to what Merv was saying?
Yeah, thank you very much for everybody attending, and we look forward to working with some of you in the future. And like Merv says, every week we get better and better at what we do, and we learn something new every week, and it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's an incredible operation that you have. And Nicco, last word to you in terms of the growing season ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for their time, and yeah, I really appreciate everybody's support, and feel free to reach out with any other questions.
Well, thanks so much. Well done, you guys. We're getting tons of thank you. You're all beautiful. Thanks for joining us. So it was our pleasure and privilege to talk to you about Christina Lake today. Thank you very, very much. And this will be, we'll be sharing for all the registrants, the recorded version. And if you have any questions, it'll all be posted, and we'll be reaching out to everyone who's registered. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thanks, Bridget.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.